I see you found our little hiding spot in the universe. Don't get too comfortable. This is a place where you will find those with an experience that's out of this world, or possibly deep within your life. I welcome you to the Oracles with James Tyson. Lean forward and listen. We will pull you into a supernatural journey with guests from around the world, each one experiencing some of the most extraordinary phenomena this wee planet has to offer. Now, here are the Oracles with James Tyson.
Thank you, Liam, and thank you, listener, for tuning into today's episode of the Oracles with James Tyson. It's me, James, and today I am very happy to have our next guest here. She is an experiencer of a near death, which is always fascinating to me. She's got a series of books. They're called Gifts from the Edge. One of them, her latest, is Lessons from the Other Side. And we'll talk about that book. We're also going to talk about her near-death experience and get into the dreams she's had since then and how she's connecting them with communication from the other side. Her book, Lessons from the Other Side, is basically a continuing journey into her own spiritual self-discovery and awakening through her dream experiences and communication with past loved ones who now are her very patient teachers. We call the book follows Claudia's lifetime quest. It's like anybody else for knowledge of the afterlife. Well, I say like everybody else, but everybody else who's died and come back. That quest of knowledge of the life after life phenomena. Her father's death when she was 16 serves as really the catalyst in creating an unquenchable thirst for more pieces of the proverbial spiritual puzzle that we all kind of walk along. Claudia shares her own tragic death experience during childbirth at the age of 30 when she was lifted into an entirely different place of complete peace. And we talk about that. We talk about that, her spirit school, what she calls it, why this is coming more and more to her now, and what really could be going on globally or within each of our lives that's really pushing this kind of global awakening. It's very, very interesting on what's going on now and what she has seen over her life that's kind of pointing it closer and closer into the direction that she was given in a lot of, I hate to call them visions, but in dreams, and her experiences since, well, her near-death experience. This detailed account of dying and the gifts she received upon coming back basically took years for her to fine-tune into kind of this crystal recollection through her journal dream sessions. And again, she journals dreams. What I always tell people to do, you journal dreams. And of course, we talk about how I never do that myself. Well, anyway, she shares the detailed accounts of this spirit school teaching and visions, and shares her gradual ability to both hear and contact the dead. Her delivery is in her book is much like a great conversation with somebody you care for and trust. And the veil between our worlds and the other side is no more than a curtain with a drawstring. And Claudia has pulled back that drawstring, and now she feels compelled to share all she has learned from her lessons from the other side. You can find Claudia on Facebook, Gifts from the Edge, EDGE, Edge. Funny, it's her name, Claudia Edge. Gifts from the Edge. Also, you can find her on Claudia Edge on Facebook. She has claudiaedge.com. It's a little bit under construction, that website, but it did give you a breakdown of her books. Get a hold of her on Claudia Edge on Facebook. If you're on the Facebook, anyway, if you want to talk to her at the end of this or any time, her email address she's happy to give out is Claudia at 2, like the number 2, Edge Inc. 2Edge Inc. INC. Claudia at 2edgeinc.com. Yeah, send her a message if you got a question or a comment. I'm sure she'd be happy to hear from you. So I'm going to go open the veil right now and go get Claudia. Claudia, how are you today?
I'm doing great, James. Thanks for asking.
Yeah, it's been nice to finally get a chance to talk to you. Always interested in near-death experiences and everything that kind of flows from that. Tell us a little bit about what it was in your experience. When did this happen and what were the circumstances?
Well, for my near-death experience, I was in my 30s. I was going to deliver a baby, a full-term baby, and I just had an intuition that something was not right. And I had a contraction that had, gone into the uterus and just held it as hard as a rock, and it never released. So I got concerned after a few hours that it might be distressing the baby. So I went to the hospital, and within moments of being in the hospital, it was like a bucket of blood just poured down my legs, and they basically pushed me on a gurney and called for whoever could come in, scalpel set. They were ready to take the baby in just moments because by the looks of the room and how fast I was bleeding out, the doctor actually said, "This girl's got 2 minutes to live." So I went from a happy, excited, going to be young mother and to what, this is how it ends kind of situation. They pushed me on the gurney and held me down. I had no anesthesia. My thought was to save the baby, and they were doing an emergency C-section to get to her. I say with no anesthesia, no oxygen, no straps, no operating room. This was right in the examining room, so it was all really fast. And as I laid there, I was very lucid. I was in no pain at that time. It was happening with my placenta, and so I was feeling no pain, and I just watched as the room got darker and darker, and I was really astounded, lucid enough to go, wow, I can't believe this is happening. This is the end of me, healthy and whatnot to the end. And the room got darker. I would look up at the lights to see if they were on, and I could tell they were on, but I really couldn't see well. But my hearing became very astute. I could hear everything in the hospital, different conversations and phones ringing and televisions in rooms. And it was kind of a crazy trade-off for my vision. But what I did see towards the end was the ceiling kind of popped out off the room, and the walls were becoming kind of wave-like. They were like water, like waves of water that were slowly moving in on me. And as they began to surround me, I thought, oh my goodness, this is the tunnel that I've heard about when you die. You go into a tunnel, right? And so I thought, wow, I'm going in the tunnel. And I have to say, I had felt no pain, prior to, but when they started the surgeries, and I noticed that a nurse they were pulling out this gray rope out of my insides, and she was stringing them like she was, wrapping up a garden hose or something. And I mean, that's when I just went, oh, please. The pain was so intense. I just begged to be able to faint or something to get away from the pain. And eventually, as the walls form this tunnel, I felt this tug from behind back of my body, and I just popped out of my body.
Popping out of your body, can you describe that? It sounds like it was very obviously surreal. Mm-hmm. And did it appear to be quick? Like
it was
popping out, or was it like slowly lifting out of your body?
It was, I describe it like, the old pop guns that kids play with, that little rubber, and you stick the ball in and pop, and the ball pops out, and you hear that pop.
Yeah.
That's what it seemed like. It was like a puff of air, and I actually describe it as a pop because it seemed like it was a pop, like it was just something quick and easy. It was familiar. I wasn't afraid, and I didn't even at the time consider that it was death because I was still me. Everything was still me. No change in thought pattern or concerns or anything. I was me with my memories, and so I wasn't afraid. And I looked at this bloody mess below me as I started to rise above my body, and I had been told that they were just kind of yelling it in a code red kind of situation, that they couldn't get the fetal heartbeat, and that my baby had drowned in my blood. And so I'd kind of had enough of that scene. It was gruesome. And so I started to float away without kind of a care in the world. It was one of those, I'm done, and floated down the hall. As I was exiting my body, and my hearing had become so acute, I heard this music, and it was the theme song from MASH. That da 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 da. It came on every evening right after the news. The news was at 10, and MASH came on at like 10:35, and this was the intro into that show. And here I am, as I'm dying, being lucid in my own death, that it must be 10:35 because MASH is on. So as I'm floating down, away from my body, I decided to go and check out where the music was coming from. It wasn't even that my ability to float was new. It felt very familiar. I knew how to do it. I knew how to rise and lift and go through walls and all of it. There wasn't a question of, man, what do I do now? It seemed like it was coming from a place of memory for me.
Was it almost like a dream?
So,
oh, I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No, not at all. No, it was very, very real. It was very, I was very present in it. And okay. It was, when I did find the music, I found myself next to a man in his hospital bed with the TV on, and he was kind of in and out of sleeplessness. Whether that was what drew me to him, because that kind of weird time in between awake and sleep is a monumental time for communication and whatnot in the afterlife. But anyway, he was in and out of sleep, and I realized that he had no idea I was there, and that's when I went, oh, I must be dead. So even the floating part hadn't been the clue. That's how easy it was.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I've never experienced anything like that, thank goodness. And but I've talked to a lot of people who have, and it's similar in their descriptions. But what's fascinating to me is that you actually had that pain. You almost stepped out of pain, mm-hmm. And severe pain. Or I've usually had people say, well, I had a heart attack, or, we were in an accident. I didn't feel any pain. The next thing I know, I'm looking at myself in the car, and then I did this and went up and all these other places. So you're floating through the hospital, checking out who's watching MASH.
Right.
And were you ever, this is the weirdest question, were you ever concerned that you were leaving everything behind and you had to go back and check and see if you could get back in?
As my then husband was out in the waiting room, and that was the first wall that I passed through. And I looked at him with a sadness because I was leaving 4 other children behind, and him, and he was there with a clipboard and the driver's license and insurance forms and, all of that he was made to go sit in there to fill out, and he had no idea what was happening on the other side of the wall. And like I say, he'd only left me moments before, So he had no idea. So the thought that I had was, I felt really sad of what was going to be happening to them, what their, what losing both the baby and I, were going to be devastating to the entire family. So I did think that, but I didn't linger there in that thought pattern. Once I had that, I was kind of went about my business. And
and what was this business you were going about?
Exactly. After I found the music, that was my business at the moment. And then as soon as I said, "Oh my goodness, I must be dead," because he had no idea I was there. And as soon as that thought pattern hit, I found myself in this vast, it was the entirety of everything. It felt like it was huge blackness. It was so, you couldn't, if I'd have had a hand, I wouldn't have been able to see it in front of my face. But I didn't feel like there were other people there, but I felt just a connection in this living darkness, and it was beautiful, and it was loving, and it was conscious, and it knew me, it knew everything about me, and it loved me unconditionally. It was it held me like a cradled baby, and I think in the years in kind of thinking of it afterwards, that cradling perhaps was kind of to ease me out of the trauma I had just been through. I'm not sure, but I was in this total darkness, and when they brought me back to my body, and I will interject here that both of us, my daughter did survive. They were actually able to revive her as well. So there were 2 miracles that happened in the hospital that night, and she is perfect and wonderful and beautiful. And so we really came out of that unscathed, I guess, is for that experience. But I just spent so many years kind of wondering why darkness, and I had pushed the experience. It was a teaching hospital, and so without even the nursing staff and doctors talked to me like, what was it when you died? I mean, they were very open. It was not something with a held tongue. They had brought in their clipboards and was ready to take notes and hoping that I could give them some information. This was 1984. Raymond Moody's books had come out in the 70s, and there was still, a lot to learn, still is a lot to learn from the NDE experience. And they were fascinated by my experience, but I couldn't give them a good answer. The first question was, what did it feel like, and the pain. They wanted to know, because they called me Pioneer Woman because this surgery had been done pioneer style. And so that was the first question. And then the other one was, what did you see or feel or hear or, do when you were gone? Did anything happen? And I felt, in looking for earth words to describe it, there was actually shame attached to it, even though I knew it was beautiful and loving, and I could have stayed there in that bliss forever. I was completely satisfied where I was. But to come back and then face these questions and the possible negative connotations that people might put to, dying and then going to the dark or whatever, it was something I just didn't want to talk about because the experience was sacred to me, and I felt like if I shared it, I was going to leave myself open for judgment. I had lost my father when I was 16, and I couldn't believe, because I had read some of Raymond Moody's books
Well,
about.
just so my listener knows, Raymond Moody is a philosopher. He's a psychologist and doctor, most widely known for all his books about life after death and near-death experiences, and which is the term that he coined back in 1975, and he in his book Life After Death. So you were basically experiencing what he wrote about.
Exactly. Only my shame was, how come I didn't experience the kind of things I'd read about? Here I was the one being told, yes, you died. It was a certainty that I had, but I didn't meet, my father or a distant relative, someone that had passed, or grandparent, or saw a beautiful, the river of life, or, a beautiful meadow, or, some of the things that you hear in these NDE stories that are just beautiful. And they have this complete story. This is what happened. Here's the beginning, here's the middle, and here's the end when I came back. And then they deal with the residual. Well, for me, I had that beginning, and I just felt like I was stuck in the middle. It's like, where had I gone? What happened to me, and how come I wasn't like everybody else? Was I bad maybe? And every time I thought that, I was like, I'd kind of, poo-poo it and push it down, because it was like, I know I'm not a bad person. I'm not bad enough to be doomed to hell forever. And man, that didn't feel like hell. It was wonderful. If that was hell, then heck yeah, I'll go back again. No, kind of thing. So I continued to read other accounts, but I did not stay just in the near-death experience world. I looked at all kinds of spiritual phenomena, because I had, we had a little conversation earlier, James, that, seeing dead people as kids and that. And, I always wondered about the shadows that I saw in my room, or when I would cry and ask my mom to, my mom just got used to coming in and sitting at the end of my bed until I fell asleep. She'd read the paper and she'd ask me, what are you afraid of? And I didn't have a good answer. I would say ghosts, but I didn't understand what I was seeing. So I think I had kind of a predisposition anyway to this. So I think the experience enhanced a lot of that psychic or a number of abilities. But I felt like, until 10 years ago, when I got angry about, I'd read enough accounts, what was wrong with me? How come I didn't have memories of this? Where was my story? Why didn't I have a story? And I began getting a little bit angry, upset about it, and really fervently asking. And it was like a door finally opened after 25 years, from this experience. Was finally, I started having the most lucid dreams that, and I used to be a sales rep for an eyewear company. And so I drove, state to state. I was on the road a lot, and I didn't mind being on the road. And when I would, something happened or whatever, I'd go, thank you, or whatever. I would talk to my spirit guide, though I had no idea who they were or anything. I just kind of knew they were probably there. Didn't necessarily feel them there, but just kind of knew from accounts that, we have a guide with us or whatnot. So I'd say, wow, I just was alone. I'd talk to my spirit guide. So I started a one-sided relationship with my spirit guide, and eventually he started showing up in my dreams. And the dreams that, you have on a nightly basis, usually by the time but even before you open your eyes, as you kind of wake up, and I call them sand dreams because they just kind of drift like sand in the wind. By the time you've sat up in bed, you don't even most of the time remember what it was that you were dreaming about. And in those dreams, my spirit guide, it took me a while to figure out it was my spirit guide. I would see this strange character in, like, if your dreams were a screen, it was kind of like on the side of my visual, that I would see someone in a strange getup. something that did not fit with the dream. Everything from the Texaco man, in way years past with the bow tie, and he actually kind of did that quick salute, the old gas man, I don't know.
Yeah.
It was crazy. But I would see him, one time I saw him as a whirling dervish in this complete red outfit, and he had the big tall dunce cap looking thing on, and was just twirling on the side of while I'm having this dream. And when my attention went to him, it was kind of like a telepathic thing, or sometimes in the beginning he would hold up a sign that said, "Pay attention to this. Notice this. Notice me. Pay attention." And then the dream would change to something that I call, a learning dream, or I actually have coined it, spirit school. I started having both memories of the other side, but a lot of them were in lesson form, as if I was in a school and with a teacher and my guide next to me. And in looking at it, examining it, years later, because it's been 10 years of this intense training, I ask, why did it take so long? What kept me in the dark for so long, literally the dark so long, and to have all of these dreams, layer upon layer of learning dreams. And the answer came back as, what did it prompt? And for me, it prompted this continual quest, this thirst for spiritual knowledge. What comes next? What comes after that? And it's been a layering of the simplest of lessons, or that seem simple, but then something is layered on top of it. Another step, another. And I know I've had a lot of people say, why is this veil? Why is this held from us? Why don't we have all of the questions answered? And it's because we are here with kind of a limited, we have been through the veil, and there's a purpose to that. And it is a, kind of like not an overload. We wouldn't understand a lot of it if it didn't come in these learning layers. And as we get it, and then they just kind of lay another layer on top. So I wanted to talk tonight partially about dreams and their importance. So you have a lot of interesting, it sounded like an interesting youth, and that, as we talked before, how do you feel about your dreams? Do you put importance to them, or?
Yeah, I found that my dreams, I put it this way, I have that reflection as a child, not knowing the difference at times between a dream and if I was awake. In hindsight, I know that there was a difference. There was, I was dreaming at this point. I was awake at this time. I did see things in my room when I was awake. In later life, and in talking to other people who have lucid dreams or dream in ways that are, even some people in their own family say, well, I never dream like that. I found that 50%, and this is actually a study. It's interesting. There was no real study on what percentage of the population are what we call empaths.
Okay. But
there are numerous studies on lucid dreams. But what I found is only empaths lucid dream. So 24 to 26, the stat is 50% of the population dream like you and I do only twice in their life. 24 to 26%, or up to even 29%, depending on whose study. I think 29% was a German study. 24 to 26% on average of people dream like you and I do regularly. That is, the dictionary definition of a lucid dream is knowing you're dreaming while you're dreaming. Right. Some people think lucid dreams are flying unicorns, farting rainbows and colors and all that. No, it's just knowing you're dreaming while you're dreaming. And it's funny because if you think back to when we were teenagers, especially post-puberty, in those few years when life was relatively simple, but we were growing, we could literally have a very, very cool dream, get up in the middle of the night, go pee, come back, press play, and start it again.
Yeah.
That's only us. That's only the higher it's only a empathic or an empath. Yeah, that's it. It's like the other, I can look at people, and this is something happened in 2012, where I can look at a photograph now or somebody in real life, and I'll look at them and say, you still wake up between 3 and 4:30 in the morning? Yeah, how did you know that? And do you ever see shadows in your room when you woke up that time? Maybe when you were a kid, you saw them a lot. Yeah, how do you know that? In your past, you attracted a lot of narcissists into your life. People just come in and drain you and have, that kind of relationship with you. Yeah, how do you're psychic. How do you know that? And I said, no, you're just an empath. Welcome to higher vibration.
Wow.
And all the problems you have with that. And plus, you're dreaming when you're dreaming. How do you know all this stuff? What's going on? It's like, how do you know me so well? I said, I don't know you. I just know us.
Yeah.
And this is only us.
Wow.
That's not if someone, a very, very low vibration person, I'm not saying that those people, now, again, I'd like caveat on that, it doesn't mean you're bad. It just means you don't have that.
Right.
And
but I
don't
think
have
it's
the
I honestly think it could be obtained if there was work applied.
Meditation.
I don't know. Yeah, meditation, raising your vibration.
Exactly. It's like the whole thing with spirit guides. If your spirit guide is trying to get your attention to say, do not turn left and drive over the cliff, they have to drop their vibration down really low to get our attention, and we have to raise it. So a lot of times, unless you're like a Buddhist bouncing around on a mat, where your vibration is constantly high and you've got nothing else in the world to worry about. We have a family member that I found. We have a family member. Yours is on the mother side of the family. She is with you, and she is the goosebumps you get on your left arm. She is the in-between your spirit guides and you, because when they need to get your attention really quick, she's the one that comes through. They just send it to her. She gives you your gut feeling, the hair on the back of your neck, and goosebumps, or your gut feeling and hair on the back of your neck. That's our immediate stuff, because spirit guides just can't, if you're walking down that alley and you're going to turn left and it's really dark and you really shouldn't, it takes too much for them to get your attention if you were not really a higher vibration person. So we do have that person that's with us, that volunteer. They're not ghosts. They're They've crossed over. They've done all their stuff. They come back. They're with you as exactly at the same time they're doing everything else they want to do, because, time's not linear. It's flat. So they're with you. And in your case, if you want to know who it is, next time in meditation, just ask. She'll tell you.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. Yeah, it's my mom.
Yeah.
And
she looks like you, but she's quite slim. Would that be her? Okay, and shorter hair. Shorter hair than you. And anyway, sorry, I didn't mean to get off into that, but she is the goosebumps on your left arm.
Wow. That's
the easiest way of putting it. And your whole left side probably later today, just to say hi.
Okay.
But that is us as empaths and us as higher vibration people. And I always hate saying higher vibration people, because it sounds like we have something that you
like
don't.
A superiority or something.
It's completely not. That's just our background. And what I've found over time in doing interviews with people like you, our Caucasian background, our Aboriginal side is Welsh, Irish, Scottish, Scandinavian, with a dip into the Black Forest of Germany, the inside of the boot of Italy, the coast, the Mediterranean coast of France, Spain, Portugal, and then the top of Morocco. If we have a few generations, and of course England, which is a bastardized chunk of Wales, Ireland, Scotland, and Scandinavian, a chunk of France, if we have ancestors going back about 200 years, 300 years in those places, we were still living with the earth. We weren't living off of the earth. So elemental beings and the things that went bump in the night, they all had names, and we were connected more. And then that hasn't been filtered out of our system. So that's our Aboriginal background. That's as close as we can be to a Aboriginal, North Central, South American, Australian, India, Africa. That's Caucasians. That's us. Basically, and then the gypsy side too. If you have that Eastern European with kind of the live off the land, traveling gypsy kind of people that had different belief systems, those belief systems still percolate. And if we have that in our background, then we're most likely going to be a higher vibration.
Wow. As you were speaking about communication and lowering a vibration and our raising so that we could meet in the middle, I have to tell you a quick story as I was awakening to all this and figuring it all out. I kept seeing the numbers 432. They were on the license plate in front of me. There was the mile sign. I just noticed that I was noticing 432 everywhere. And I had a dream that I was, and my mother had passed maybe 6 months or so before. And I saw my mother in a dream, and there was a kind of a window between us. I could see her, but we weren't communicating. And I could feel that she wanted to communicate. And I had always she was very religious. And so she tolerated me with a smile when I had my weird stories or whatever and started writing them down. I didn't know I was preparing for a book, but I would share some of these stories that I thought she could handle. And so I felt like I was kind of bringing her into the spiritual phenomenon, not totally willfully, but kind of dragging her a little bit because she was my mom and she loved me, she would listen. So when we were trying to communicate through this window, I started saying, kind of yelling to her, "You've got to lower your vibration, Mom. Lower it to 432. And then I'm going to be trying to raise mine to this number 432. And when I woke up, I was still speaking that, and I had my fingers, my hand cupped to my mouth, still shouting 432. So it's an interesting, I did look up, I should have, and maybe you've heard of that before, but I should have looked it up or Googled 432. I put it in my books, but it's really a healing and communicational level between us and spirit. So I had no idea what I was talking about, but my dream certainly taught me that is a real and true frequency.
Yeah, it's also an angel. If you look up angel numbers and angel codes, 432 is one of those numbers that's asking you to release any negative energy that is a hold on you and get rid of anything that makes you feel resentful, insecure, angry, unmotivated. So there's that. But you actually have it as a focal point, a focus point on raising a vibration and dropping another vibration. It's like a meeting point. It's like those people who do remote viewing, they'll focus on a number and try to see and meet at a number. And that's interesting that you've basically, both of you had a place to meet. And that is a very, very interesting, a very cool story.
Well, when she passed, because she was, what they say, my sainted mother, that kind of thing. But I mean, she was such a sweetheart, and the religion that she followed, you don't drink, you don't smoke, you don't do a lot of stuff, and pray on your knees every night. This was my mother, and so it was a lot for her just to kind of listen to me, be more open to this. That was, and so when she passed, and it was a grueling, long journey for her, that passage. I spent just about a month sleeping in the hospital next to her because, she was afraid. It's like she basically gave over all of her care to me, and I felt like it was a contract that I had I had with her. There was no way in the world I wasn't going to be by her side. And we worked through a lot of things in the hospital together. I would tell her of the dreams I had that pertained to her as we were in the hospital, of whom I was seeing. You think the patient is seeing the other side. I was seeing it more and trying to tell her to let go so that she could see the other side as well, and that her brothers and sisters and whatnot were coming for her. And so I feel like I eased her into the other side, but I knew that she was really confused by it. Because, you get a religious conditioning, and I do not say that disparagingly. I won't disparage any religion. I think it is important community and service, and I was raised within a religion, and it is a basis of the foundation of who I am today. So I do not say that lightly. So I hope I haven't offended anybody. But she did not get past that. The box, I would call it, of what she understood and what she expected on the other side. And I had several dreams from her of her confusion of being in kind of a special resting place on the other side, where they kind of get used to how it really is, as opposed to what they had been taught to believe what was there. So I know there is a respite for that. And so it was really important for her and I to learn how to communicate with each other, because she still had so much trust. She was in and relying on me even after she passed to ask me, is this real, or should I listen to this? That's how much trust that we had with each other. So I was really quite instrumental in easing her into the afterlife.
Oh, that's beautiful. And it's it's one of the I'm feeling it's one of those, the perks, if I can call it a perk, you had from your near-death experience. It's one of those things. It's like, okay, I've been there. It's okay. It's going to be okay. And the fear, and this happens a lot with people who are passing and in hospice, or they're passing, we'll call it slowly, and they come from very religious backgrounds. And there is a point where they have this perception of, oh crap, did I pick the right one?
Ah, yeah.
As it's getting closer, I'm confident. Oh crap, what if?
What if? Yeah.
What if I was supposed to be pagan? I'm Catholic, or I'm Mormon, and I should have been Jewish. Okay, okay, hold on. Give me a second here. I don't want to go yet. I'm thinking, and you overthink it. It's like anything else. It's like, I'm ready to jump out the plane. I've got my parachute. Everything's okay. Okay, hold on. Who made the parachute? Who packed it? Did I pack it? Is it going to work? It's like, I'm 100% confident until you get to the door.
Exactly.
And you second guess it.
When we were speaking earlier, I didn't mention that I had heard the word service whispered in my ear at one point. And I knew of service, and I had been of service before when I was more in my religious days. But this day I was just working really hard out in my garden, and I was lifting a big bag of dirt and moving rocks, and I heard service. And I looked. It was in my left ear, and it was audible. And I looked all around me, and I was like, what, where did that come from? Because it was clear as a bell. And I started thinking as I worked, well, okay, what kind of service? I mean, I knew that it had to have come from the light. And so I accepted it, and it was pretty miraculous. And so I thought about it all day, and I thought, with my interest in death, I guess, is the other side, ghosts, everything. I decided to serve in hospice. So I became a volunteer hospice worker for 5 years. I spent on what they call the bridge in Colorado, Pikes Peak Hospice Service. And you nailed it. I mean, you come down to that point, and just before the acceptance, where it's kind of like, well, I've done everything I can do. I either got it right or I didn't. It's kind of like they're too sick to to go beyond those thoughts, and there becomes an acceptance. And I witnessed that many times in the crossings. And I really think I do, when I said that I felt like I had a contract with my mother, I think that my being able to handle the situation that she was in was facilitated by my years in hospice work. I think I was doing that a lot just to help her, as well as the benefits that I got while I was there.
Have you ever heard of the expression a death doula?
I have heard it. I've heard somebody the other day said they wanted to be a death doula, but
actually there are courses. You can take a college course here, a night school course in British Columbia to be a death doula. I had a friend of mine years ago on an old podcast I did. She would call in and she said, "This weirdest thing. I bump into people that I knew years ago, but they're in hospice, or not bumped into them in hospice, but they were, just about to go in, or they were in the last stages of cancer, stage 4 cancer." And she said, "It's the weirdest thing. I keep bumping into people I know that are dying, and I'm around until they die, and then I bump into somebody else." And it was like she was put into a path to assist in the crossing of people. And most of the people that came to her, all of them who came to her in the first bit, were people she knew in life. And then she actually realized that she was getting really good at just sitting with them and watching them die. And then she went off, took a course, and became a death doula, which is the creepiest thing. In my head, it's like, what do you do? I help people cross. It's like, one person helps you come into this world, and she helps you relax on your way out. And it's fascinating. Yeah. And that's kind of where you almost went, at least with your mother anyway. You got into that point where, okay, don't worry about it. Everything's going to be okay. And then you found a opening where you could help other people too. Well,
through this, as I've opened, because that brings up a point that I wanted to make, is for me, it's like I've experienced a little bit of everything. I don't have, I was looking at some of your amazing past guests and their talents. This is their talent. They're clairvoyant, medium, or whatever they're doing, that's their specialty. For me, I've had like a little bit of everything. I'm not perfect. I can't, it's like I'm not going to open, a shop and do readings or whatnot, because that's not my forte, even though I've done it a few times and I've experienced a lot of these things, including in dream, doing the exact thing that you were talking about. After I no longer volunteered, and after my mother passed, I did that for a while in dream and assisted those who were unconscious in this dimension on their way out, but they were holding on in fear, and I worked with them as far as what is going to happen on the other side. And I call it dream work. I've done some of that too. So it's kind of crazy. Not crazy.
You talk about the spirit school. What is it that you're being taught in the spirit school, and why now? Why do you think now is important?
I feel like I've been groomed for a very long time because how people, like you were just saying, that sounds just creepy, to deal with death or whatever. And most people don't deal with it. They, it's something. My daughter, my oldest daughter, the other night said, "What do you want when you die, Mom?" It's something that we don't talk about. And I said, I've always been open to it. It's my kids that aren't open to it. They've had this weird mom, and whatever, mom's weird, so they don't really want to talk about woo-woo with me, right?
And the other thing too is death and funerals and after death. That's all for the living. That's not for us.
Yeah, exactly. That it doesn't matter. It is, whatever gives peace to the ones grieving, the ones that are left behind. And I understand that grief, because when I was 16, I lost my dad. I had a very special relationship with my dad, And I loved my dad. I can hardly say that without crying. I still miss him to this day, and think about the influence that he could have had on in my life, but have since learned, yeah, he's had a lot of influence in my life. It's just he's been on the other side, doing a lot of orchestrating for me. So I've learned that. But see, I get in that, and I kind of lost my way, my little path, where I was going with that. Let's see if I have it in my notes. I'm going to pick that up in a minute, because every time I talk about him, it's hard for me still.
Yeah.
But he was instrumental. Oh, we were talking about spirit school. Thank you. Mm-hmm. And he's been instrumental in a lot of teachings. And like I say, the teachings will come in layers. Like one of the, and I think your audience might enjoy this dream I had. It was, I was completely warm. I was in this moist, warm environment, and I was completely happy. And I could feel I was blind, and I was rolling around with the like of me, brothers, sisters, mom, dad, neighbors, everybody. We were all in this kind of heap in the dirt. And as my dream kind of pulled out and I was lucid within it, going, oh my goodness, I'm an ordinary garden grub in this moist soil with the people who, that I was born next to, who I saw myself and felt myself eating, and you barely have to move, even an inch to find food, sex, warmth. We comforted each other. We lived on top and next to each other, and it was a perfectly beautiful, content, happy world I was living in. And I woke up and going, oh my goodness, there is not any kind of life that is superior to another type of life. That the ordinary garden grub is so happy in its environment. It was a huge learning lesson and perspective, and that's how a lot of my spirit school dreams come in.
Yeah, it is interesting where you look at it's that Buddhist way of looking at a very small thing and realizing how that tiny little being is connected in the larger. It's a piece of the greater puzzle. Mm-hmm. And it's sometimes it's overwhelming, and I remember sitting on a boat and looking at a bug crawling on the boat and looking at it thinking, it's just like me. It's smaller, but we all are doing something on this boat right now that's very important to us at this time in our lives. And his is just crawling up the side of the boat, and I'm just sitting in it. So it's like, yeah, we're all sharing the same space, but he was just a size completely foreign to me and doing little things that the bug does that would be 100% important for his life to survive. And it's the perception. It's our perception and understanding that everything fits together.
Exactly. In fact, that I know that dream was of a perception, but it also kind of wafted into reincarnation as well. It's like I really have had a life of something else, and it was an important, and I don't know what you're feeling on this, but I'll just kind of throw it out there, because it's like I had never considered that I could be a rock or a bug or, something before. Always thought, well, that's an entirely different species or whatnot. But as long as you are learning something from the experience, and I learned a lot. Or maybe that was a way station. You know how when you've had a hard life or whatever, and it's like, you just like, I don't want to come back. I don't want to do this again. Maybe the bug life is just that way station of, being happy and satisfied and just kind of there for a while. I don't know. Kind of an interesting thought.
Yeah, take a break for the 4 or 5 hours you're alive.
Right.
Don't fly towards that bright light. Snap.
Snap.
That's the wrong kind of light. We are talking to Claudia Edge. Please, if you want to talk to Claudia or send her an email, it's Claudia at the number 2 Edge INC, so 2edgeinc.com. Claudia at 2edgeinc.com. Go to her Facebook page, Claudia Edge, and send her a friend request there, or just friend her there. And also, she has a Facebook page called Gifts from the Edge. And it's a book series that Claudia has. And also her website, claudiaedge.com. It's under construction, but you can still get a gist of what she's done and check out her books and things like that. Claudia, you've off you go to spirit school. And,
yeah.
What are you being taught there?
A lot of it is just, as I was saying earlier, the layering of lessons. Like one of the lessons that I learned was how to describe. Here's that question. Why are we here, and why don't we know why we're here, type of thing. And what I was shown is being in school. And the teacher handed me this really funky pillow. I haven't seen that fabric since the early 60s, but it's kind of a translucent brownish color, and it has little fuzzy dots all over it. And they made these kind of people who designed their homes in kind of a Western motif or something. I remember that pillow being on a number of couches. I was familiar with it, though I hadn't seen it, since the 60s. But my guide pushed this pillow at me and said, describe this pillow. And I'm holding and looking at it. And it was really hard to find the words. I was like, well, it's brown and it's got these dots. And he looked at me and he said, no, it's like, I don't know what brown is, or dots. What's fuzzy? It's like, how do you describe something to someone who has never seen this before? Really reach within you. And he even used my son Jesse, who is probably one of the only people that I have in my family to really bounce this stuff off of. We have those conversations where it's like, let's go deep, let's dig into spiritual stuff. So the teacher, who was, and I will interject here that I was not a good student in school. It wasn't that I wasn't intelligent. I just didn't care. I was there for the social. And learning was kind of like, if I did, great. If I didn't, it just wasn't important to me at the time. And since my experience, it's all I ask for. Teach me. I want to know more. I want to know more. If I learned something, man, that was great. Give me more. And my experience with teachers here on earth were, impatience or just no time. It's like, okay, you're not interested. Well, then I'm not interested in helping you. And so there was a temperament there of being impatient with me and whatnot. And so here on the other side, the teacher is so patient, will face to face look me in the eye and be excited as I start to grasp these answers. The concept is there, and it's like when he can see that I'm grasping it, he gets excited. So he's got this pillow in my hands, and I'm really reaching how to describe it. And he said, describe brown to me. Let's just start with brown. Describe brown. And I was, and the translucency of this pillow fabric, and an onion came to mind, and I was trying to describe how the layers of the onion, eventually formed a color on the outside of the onion, and it was kind of this translucent brown color. And then he was like, well, explain an onion to me. And, what does it taste like? What does it smell like? And I mean, it just stretched, from this one thing. I mean, we just had an entire night of, trying to go through and share something that was very, very hard to share. And he, at one point, he on purpose, because he was very patient with me. So when he started being frustrated and saying, "Now describe this," and what color was it, and what, and if someone doesn't even from that era, how are you going to tell them about this fabric, and what were the dots, and pink dots? Well, why were pink dots on top of brown? It was just, and he said this in rapid fire, and at the very end he took this deep breath, and in that moment I understood the frustration of the other side, because it's like, yeah, we're in this quest for answers, right? And I think, honestly, even entering, dying and entering the afterlife, it isn't an instantaneous knowing everything, right? We're still learning as spirits as well, and so whatever we can get done here, whatever concepts in that we can grasp on this side, I think there is just so much excitement for our getting it. And I could see in his eyes, man, I was getting it. And he was so proud and so happy. So, I've had other instances in spirit school of, where it's on the blackboard. It's kind of like, tonight's, we're going to learn, cause and effect, or, what was the title of, trying to think here. Just, they'll throw out a title and it's kind of like, this is pieces of the whole. This one is about where we came from, basically. And I was shown this, a beautiful, like a coin purse. It was silken fabric, and it was sewn with golden threads, and it had little beads and jewels attached to it, and it was absolutely a beautiful little purse. And as I'm looking at it, the purse started ripping off pieces of itself, and each piece was different than the other, even though they were the same. One may have a piece of the golden thread, or one may not have anything at all, and one may have a jewel, or one may have a bead and a jewel and not the thread, so they were similar because they were from the complete whole, but they were now individual pieces that actually I watched them, these pieces that were torn from the whole, being, and I whole meaning WHOLE, and become conscious. They started to vibrate, and they had their own consciousness, and they were trying to show me of the perfection of God. But we are pieces of that whole, that entity, that perfection. And so as we awoke and became conscious, each were kind of going in their own direction. But it's going to take all of us, and so in the spirit school that I was having was showing me that we are all pieces of the whole, and we will be returning back to complete that perfect coin purse. And what I have learned in spirit school also is I will get this heading, tonight's lesson is, but it will be marked as a parable or a metaphor. It's kind of like, let's don't get it twisted, Claudia. God is not really a coin purse kind of thing. It's like, this is an example so that you may grasp it. And so when we were talking about dreams earlier, I've told people, it's like, when you have a dream like that, if you can just lay in bed just a little bit longer, or try to retain some of the memory of what you might have dreamed about. And it might have been something as odd as a coin purse, but it might have had really a deep meaning within you, trying to kind of build those layers, those stepping stools, basically, the steps to further knowledge. If you're asking, you're going to get it. And one of the most probable places to get that knowledge is through your dreams.
And that's just, again, paying attention to those. And,
exactly.
And like I've always told people, please, if you're a dreamer and you're getting all this information, journal them, for goodness sakes. And I know I say that all the time. And do you think I've journaled a dream? No. But yeah, I'm that guy. I'm that guy who's like, just do what I say. But
I'm the opposite of that guy.
Yeah.
I'm sitting here in a library of dream journals.
See, that's really cool. So why do you think you're receiving, first of all, why do you think you receive these dreams? Is it layers of the onion that you're being given?
Yes.
And if we're not paying attention, do we have to come back, do this all over again, and until we've got our onion built?
Really super good questions. My mom asked me that one time. I had lost my little sister. She was 56 at the time. She was up brushing her teeth, getting ready for the day, and a brain aneurysm took her out in moments. She was there one moment and gone. And, I started hearing from my little sister. She was one of my greatest teachers. And it wasn't just in dream, but, I started, it became audible inside my own head. It was different than when I heard that word service. That was, I think, straight from the light, and it was audible. Hers was something familiar, or a way that it was presented that I knew it wasn't my own head talking, and I could hear her. And when I was trying to offer something to my mom, guess what? I heard from Kaylin, and she'd look at me, she'd smile, and she was kind of like, oh, I'm happy for you in your delusions or whatever, But I said, no, Mom, it's like I can hear her, and I know she's okay. And I would try and share with her. And she looked at me one day and she said, why are you getting all this? Kind of like, where is this coming from? And I thought about it for a minute, and I says, Mom, can you imagine how frustrated Kaylin was to be here one moment and the next she's gone, and she never got a chance to say goodbye? I said, can you imagine how many souls on the other side are frustrated, not where they ended up, but just the fact that they didn't get to say goodbye, or, see their loved ones that one last time, or, whatever. And I said, I feel like I have, and this was years ago, before I even knew chakras and anything. We're talking to, this was not my forte. I've been kind of dragged along in my learning. So, and maybe that is what has kept me humble, through it, because I question everything. And then as I learn, and someone says, oh, that's your crown chakra, and it's like, oh, tell me about that. Okay, there's another thing to go look up. But I said, Mom, I feel like there's a crack, at the top of my head. And for whatever reason, those on the other side can see me and can see that I'm open, even if it's just a crack. I've left enough opening that some things can get through. And it actually calmed my mother. It soothed her to know that I wasn't totally weird. I think she was satisfied with that explanation.
Well, it makes sense. As long as I think it was the proper way to explain it to her, because it kind of it was respected her belief system, and she could kind of make out what you meant.
Right.
So, yeah, she accepted it the way it was given. So that was actually a good way of putting it.
Part of your question in asking, well, what happens for those who aren't curious or don't have that crack or whatever, is that going to be a problem or whatever? And I would say absolutely not. There are some of us, I don't know for sure if that's because we are an older soul, as people use that term, maybe have had more trips here than somebody else, or is getting toward the end of where, it's like, I kind of don't want to do this, incarnations anymore. Maybe I want to, be an angel or be a guardian for somebody else or something. Wherever we are on our journey, it's all important. It's all real. And I think those who aren't curious or, I'm blessed with a wonderful husband, but he has no interest in this. He tolerates it. Sometimes when I wake up and I'm like, oh my God, I've got to tell you this dream, and he'll listen, but I can see his eyes kind of glaze over.
Yeah, until you wake up with the lottery numbers, he's just going to go, yes, dear.
That's
yes,
exactly
dear.
what he says. You know what? Tell me when you get the lottery numbers, and then I'll listen, okay? But do I think that he is less magnificent of a soul or anything like that? Absolutely not. And so I just feel like I came in with this quest, of I want to learn, I want to know. I started my first book when I was 14 years old. Didn't finish it. I didn't have enough life experience, but here I am with, a pretty normal childhood, and my book was going to be about the afterlife. I had put myself in a position of, in my book, I was the lead character, but I was a much older version of myself, and my true love was going off to the Vietnam War. And, somewhere in the book, he ends up not coming back. And I'm playing now the dutiful fiance that is at his gravesite. And as I bring him flowers or letters or things like that, I'm noticing that there are changes. The flowers have been rearranged, or the letter has been opened like it had been read, or a candy bar that I had left had a bite out of it. It was this in my book was getting to the point of, is there something once someone dies, there is another side. I had no experience with that. Why was a normal 14-year-old girl so involved in what happens on the other side? But when I was 16 and I lost my dad, I put the book away. It was like, okay, now I had real drama, and I know, I didn't have any interest in it anymore at that stage in my life. But I certainly had the grief. I grieved for my father. It put me in a tailspin of at 16. You're thinking of dating, and you're getting, wanting to get your driver's license, and all of those normal schools. Where do I want to go to college, and all of that. And it shut everything down for me. The loss of him, and all I did was look for where the energy of him had gone, because I just kept imagining that he wouldn't leave me. He loved me enough to not leave me. And I would look for him in the room or beside my mother or, someplace I don't even know what I was looking for, a ghostly form or, something. But I just really felt like he should be there. And I didn't feel him. And I think as I had woken up that time and asked what did it prompt, I really feel like I also had a contract with my father that he was going to be leaving early. He was going to have an early exit, and I was going to be so attached for him I would spend the rest of my days looking for the totality of who he was and where that energy was and where did he go and what was he doing now? He was in heaven. Well, what do they do in heaven? Does he have a job? What is it? And so I've had this quest for my whole life of wanting to know more. And I think the NDE was most probably, as you were saying earlier, you have one, you have two, you come back every time with a little more knowledge and power, more clairvoyance or psychic abilities or whatnot. I think maybe that was an opening for me to, start having these dreams or something.
When you were dreaming, what are some of the most interesting dreams you've had? and you've written about. Now, I guess I written about because you have a couple of books that I failed to mention earlier. Gifts from the Edge is Lessons from the Other Side came out last year. And before that, a couple of years ago, was Gifts from the Edge, Stories of the Other Side. So one is the Stories from the Other Side, one is Lessons from the Other Side, and my listener can find those on Amazon. If you just Google Claudia Watts Edge, author, or Gifts from the Edge, Lessons from the Other Side, you can pick up, you'll see those books bounce up. But when you write, if you've written much about your kind of I was going to say the most interesting, James. Of course you would. But what are the ones you've written about that really stick out in your head?
Since we were just talking about my father and that I hadn't really dreamed or anything of him, what really stuck out is the time that I dreamed this letter of like a formal invitation dropped from the sky, and I pick up this. It's like a wedding invitation, beautiful print and gold bonded edges and whatnot, and it said that my father would like to meet with me. And I was ecstatic. It's been over 40 years since I've even dreamed about my dad. And so, I when I held this card in my hand, and just touched the thickness of the cardstock, just a really premium invitation. And it said, be such and such place at such and such time to meet with your father. And it was in another state. It was several states away. And looking at the time on the card, I knew that I better get to it. I threw a couple of things in the car, and man, I started driving. And I drove for several days to get to this location. And the only times that I got out of the car was to put gas in it. And everybody around that were pumping gas as well, I would ecstatically tell them, it's like, oh, I get to meet with my dad. I haven't seen him in 40 years. I'm so excited. And the people were very kind. They were going, oh, we're so happy for you. Go get it, girl. Go, girl, and all that. And they shared my excitement. So I drove for 2 days to get to this location. And it was in a Midwestern town. And I was driving down this kind of farmland type road, and the GPS was going. It was sending me this road. I was on the correct location, but it hadn't been until that point in my excitement of being able to meet with my, dead father, that I had even thought about, why am I meeting him so far away from where I was? And as I got to the location, I looked at the mailbox at the end of a gravel driveway. The house was a farmhouse, just kind of up a little hill, so it was a long driveway. And I let my excitement go to questioning. Is he even going to recognize me? It's been so long. And I just took a leap of faith. I was there at exactly the moment that I needed to be, and got out I checked my lipstick, put a little lipstick on, checked myself in the mirror going, I don't even know if he'll know me. Will I know him? And, he was a very handsome man, not just coming from his daughter, but my friends' mothers, everybody told me, your dad's really handsome. And he had this jet black hair that was slicked back, and this is what I expected. And as I walked this gravel driveway, again in dream, this is dream, I'm approaching this farmhouse, and I see a young man, and he is walking back and forth to a truck, and he's throwing things in the back of the truck. By the time I got up to the truck, he was in the bed kind of arranging things, and had thrown a duffel bag in there, and he had on an army uniform, like the desert sand type uniforms. Yep. And I looked at him, and I thought, well, I'm here, and this young man is here, and it's like, where's my dad? And at that moment in time, it was like a soul-to-soul contact. And it was not expressed in words. I was made to know that this young man was my father. And I stood there and looked at this young man who looked nothing like this handsome man that I knew to be my father. He was about 20, in his 20s, maybe 21 years old, in this Army uniform. He had, his mouth was bigger. He had seemed like more teeth or pointier teeth. Everything on his face looked different. It wasn't anything that looked like my father. And his head was buzzed, getting, as an Army buzz. And I saw this tattoo on his head. It was this strange, like a pyramid, like an elongated pyramid or something, and it had something running through the middle of it. And I was drawn to this tattoo, and we continued to have this soul-to-soul communication of, this was my father, and I was upset as I believed everything I was hearing, but I kept thinking, my father has been back on the earth for, say, 20 years, breathing the same air as me all this time as I have grieved and missed him. And he's been back, and I had no idea. This is the very beginnings of my understanding reincarnation. And, in fact, I had even I went to a psychic one time and said, don't be telling me that my dad is my little brother, or my son or something. I was like, I wasn't ready for that kind of information. And I don't know if she would have told me, but I just warned up front. It was like, I'm not ready for that. My dad has this special place in my heart, and he's going to be my dad. He's not going to be my son right now. Okay. So I kind of fought that. And as I'm looking at this young man and realizing that I am being told that this young man was and is indeed my father, and yet I had no tie to him at all. And what was expressed was that he was getting ready to go off to war, and that he really needed all of his energy and concentration in this life. And, we can get into, our higher self, and, that is basically the tree. And, there are different branches and even leaves within the branches of the trees. It's like, I think our lives are spread out. I think we are living several different lives. But this particular one, he was kind of asking for his power back, not to grieve him so deeply, that we would always be connected, that we had an eternal love that would never change, and that he was available to me as my father whenever I needed him. But he would be grateful if I could kind of let him go a little bit, if that makes sense, because I think I was holding on to him too tightly. And so he was asking, and I say it in earth words, and I don't want to misrepresent, because I know he wasn't letting me go as his daughter, and I didn't want anyone to get that confused. Someone who's mourning, their child or their parents or whatever, that we are always connected. So I don't want to misrepresent that, but there was something about how deeply that I was grieving for him, that he was asking to be released from some of that grief. And it was helpful to me in my further learning, and his ability now to come to me in dreams is a little caveat there, because grief can really block someone from being able to contact you and communicate with you. But as I was looking at the soldier, just to finish this, was probably the biggest dream that I had, and that I cherish. It's completely sacred to me. But I was drawn back to his tattoo. He had this light brown hair where my father had this jet black hair. And I reached out. I wanted to touch his face. I wanted to do something to kind of do that physical letting go of my father, as I understood that that's what he wanted. And instead of touching his face, I was drawn to the tattoo on his head, and I touched the tattoo. And when I did, it was like falling through a tunnel of sectioned off lifetimes together, showing that we have been tied together in so many lifetimes, and some that we weren't. But it was like this linear, just experience after experience. Some of them we changed gender and, circumstances and everything, but that we had been tied together for eternity, and that we would never lose that love for each other. By my touching that tattoo, to have gone through that tunnel of knowledge was amazing. And like I say, it was a layer after I'd had a few of like the grub dreams, of possible lifetimes of several other things. It was like this, like the big aha moment for me of, oh my goodness, reincarnation exists. It's very real. And I knew that I could trust the information because it was coming from my father, the person whom I trusted the most in this entire world. It was coming from him, and so it was definitely a spirit school teaching moment, coming from someone that I had been anxious and wished for and prayed for seeing again, and he came back in a big way.
That is very, very cool. And that's a connection that it's hard to explain to, like, especially people who don't dream. There are certain dreams that we have where they are more real than others, and that is the type of dream that, like, when you experience a dream like you've just described with your father. Well, that opens up not only the emotions you have because there's a realization that this is your father, but this person they're not looking like my father. So
right.
So you have a conflict, you have a exhilaration that, okay, this is my dad. I get so much to ask him, but he's not really my dad. So should I be asking? That overwhelming, the mixing up of all these emotions within the dream itself. And for those people who have dreams and actually feel connected to some of them, will understand that. But others, unfortunately, and again, it's not like someone's better or not. It's just it's not meant to be at this point in their travels.
Exactly.
Lives. But this is interesting where you actually can meet somebody who most likely does exist somewhere on Earth in a dream. And I'm wondering, it always kind of gets me wondering, like, was he having a dream at the exact same time? Wondering, who the heck are you?
Yeah.
And what is going on here? Are you, was there a connection to you in his dream? So those are those weird things, like, yeah, we have certain types of dreams, agreed. But when we dream about somebody else, are they also having that dream on the other side of the planet and we don't know them? And how do we actually get together to compare dreams? It's bizarre. It's crazy. Do you ever dream about things that, like a prophetic dream, something you dream about stuff that's to come and it actually shows up?
Yeah. One of my greatest teachers that way has been my sister. And one of the dreams that come to mind is and I say these dreams come in layers. Sometimes they're in the same night, or they can be kind of in a grouping of several nights, so that the entirety is still really fresh and can be kind of put together, and they come in story form and whatnot. But she was showing me that there is a new world coming, basically, and what really stuck out in that dream, I did not see her face. She was kneeling. We were kneeling down together, sitting on the floor together. And I remember her legs were under, and her hands were on her thighs. And she had this different kind of a coin in her hand. It looked almost like it was like a metal, but it had the weight of like wood, like a little like someone slicing a branch, but in a small branch, so to speak. And it had this like upside down A, but the middle line was squiggly. And I put a picture in my books because, I'll get up and I am no artist, but I try to record what I see. And she held it up for me to see. And she said there will be a time in the future where we will not need, to trade coin and whatnot. That will, it's going to be back to kind of, bartering and everyone just working towards the good of the community, whatever your special talents in that were. And if there needed to be something traded to show, that there was a trade-in action or something that would be a kind of a place marker of a deal going between people, that it would be used with this coin. And she held it up for me to look at in front of my face, and then she let it go, and it toppled to the ground. And by the looks of it being kind of a shiny-ish metal, it was like a stone that was made of metal or something, but it was the lightweight of wood, and and when it hit the ground, it wasn't a big thud or anything. It wasn't heavy. It didn't carry much weight to it. And I'll never forget the feeling of this world that is going to be coming to pass, and just the different use of coins, and that sorry, just had someone peek at me. It makes me forget what I'm talking about. Also, what is coming to pass or in our future is the ability to spot trickery or lying or whatnot, that we will, years ago when I barely knew what an aura was and having these dreams, people have a color that surrounds them. It is an energy reading or whatnot of this person may be more of a healer or something, whatever identifies. And I'm sure you can speak more on the aura than I can. But in this dream, what it showed me was we carry these colors with us, and those who are in trickery or lying, kind of the silver tongue, type, that their countenance would be much darker. It would not be that you would have to guess or wonder if someone is being straight with you, but you would be able to recognize it, right off, that you wouldn't even really, that no one was even going to approach that type of person. That they could not hide who they were from within. And that dream was so real that I know it's coming. I know I saw that it was coming. There will be the laws that will be in effect are only going to be in the likeness of God, that God will be a part of the laws, not man making the laws, but that there really isn't a need for them. And if there came to be a need, it would be something that would be held up to the light. And so it sounds like we've got a really great time coming. I feel like we're kind of, mucking around in the darkness in the beginning of it, kind of thing.
That's what I'm getting from a lot of people, and it's coming quicker than anticipated. Well, I shouldn't say anticipated. It's just coming quick. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a change. The lower, really, really low vibration people aren't going to be around.
Yeah. And,
I hate to say like a culling of the herd, but there's a change afoot. And it's, we have to, if we don't get back living with the earth and stop living off of the earth herself is going to be a bucking bronco throwing us off. So
right.
Things are going to change, and we see them globally. Mm-hmm. I know that You live in the United States, I live in Canada, so we're the neighbors to the north, and we get influenced a lot by what goes on in the U.S. We don't get influenced per se, but we see what's going on, and it's interesting, and it's like the noisy neighbor. But we got to remember that our noisy neighbor take up 4% of the population of the planet.
Wow.
So there's 96% of the planet are still doing their things.
Yeah.
But there's one really noisy one. So it's like, okay, you guys in the basement, will you knock it off?
Yeah.
but is it like the canary in the coal mine? Is there something going to happen in the United States that is like the indicator of, okay, now we're in crap, or like something's going to happen, or now we're going to be okay? It's like either or, and you just kind of have to. Me on the other, I sit back and go, okay, this is going to be good. Pass the popcorn. But you live within that mix, that energy, that swirling, absolutely incredible swirling energy of what's going on and has been going on for a few years in the U.S. and the projection into the future, whether it's like severe weather and fires and droughts and floods and all the other, you've got everything but locusts right now. So it's... Actually,
there were some locusts.
Oh, geez, no. Okay. All right. I'm never going down again. I'm glad we built that wall.
Yeah.
And we made Alaska pay for it. I don't know yet. Yeah, it's interesting. What's to come, the glimpses that we get of, and intuitives will get of what's to come, sitting down with everybody. It's like we're all looking at a car accident from, again, I'm not, this is not to do with the US, but we're all looking globally at a car accident, but we're all looking at it from different angles. So we all have different ways of describing it.
Yeah.
So as a policeman, when you go to an accident scene and you get 10 witnesses saying, this is what I saw, they all saw the same thing, but they all describe it differently. So that's what I'm hearing from intuitives. There is something afoot. There is some change, a great change coming. And it actually is for the good in the long run.
But it's going to be awful. I mean, we're going through some crap on purpose. When you're drawn to your knees, or dropped to your knees, it's like there's only one way to go, and it's up. And I have seen and heard all will be touched. All will be touched. So I don't think it's just the United States as we see,
no, it's not. It's not. But again, they're the noisy one. So everyone thinks, oh, those Americans, what a bunch of guys. That's 4% of the entire world's population.
Wow.
4, not 50. That's 4%. There's 96% of the population of the planet going to be doing something too.
Yeah.
We just hear the noisy neighbor.
We're the noisy neighbors. I love it. Great analogy there.
You guys are the kids in the crib down the hall screaming while we're trying to watch TV.
Yeah.
So,
well, and we were talking earlier, as far as something's going to happen, I think you said something like the earth is going to flick us off or whatever,
us off, yeah.
And I didn't want the audience to be in fear of this. It is for the good, and yes, many will perish, but perishing isn't the worst thing in the world. I mean, it sounds awful in our earth language and our earth feelings and everything to have someone perish that is not able to raise their vibration in time, because the earth is tired. The earth is tired. It's like it's time to move on too. It wants this change. And if we can't change with it, if we're unable to in time, there will be many deaths. I've seen it, and it's not fun to look at, but those who are recognizing it, and I don't say this from the top of the pulpit and, be good and, da-da-da-da-da. It's like, pay attention, just be a good person. Don't be an asshole, right?
And I've been, I got some information from a couple of people who've literally, they're alien communicators, they're intuitives, they've seen, they're visionaries. We had one rule, and we screwed it up. And we can talk about all the religions in the world, but we had one rule. It was the golden rule. Do unto others as we would have them do unto us. And literally there, you can go back in Egypt, thousands of years ago in Egypt, where they actually have a similar rule about do no harm to somebody as they would, or you would have them do to you, or something like that. So it was one of the three versions of, there's a negative, a positive, and a kind of a generic rule. Basically, just get along.
Yeah.
Don't hurt somebody else. Treat them as you would wish them to treat you is the positive way. But we broke that. We screwed that up. So it's like, okay, we gave you a chance. 2,000 years ago, we told you. 3,000 years ago, we told you, this is what we'd like you to do. And we kind of screwed that up. So now they're flipping the reset button.
Yeah.
And those who still believe in community and no fences and no walls and supporting others, showing the empathy to the other, service, very big. One of the most powerful words you can use if you think about what it means. It's service is strictly helping somebody, helping other. I was talking to a friend of mine. We talked about moving from the third dimension into the fifth dimension, skipping the fourth, but it's moving from ego and belongings and collecting to connecting and being more family-like with the rest of the planet. It was described as going from me to we. That shift from this is all about me and my family and my ego, and these are all my toys, and this is all my stuff, and this is mine. This is a fence around my house. I got locks on my door. We want to put a wall around our community. Screw it, we'll put a wall around our country. This is my stuff. You can't have it. We're moving out of that.
Yeah.
Moving into. Yeah, we talked about this like in 2015 on my podcast. We talked about something that was changing. This is 2015. We talked about politicians being placed in certain places around the world, which will bring their countries up to the edge of a razor blade. Like it could fall either way. We're going to have civil war, or we're not. And these were going to be coming. We talked about severe weather, geological events that were going to keep increasing, and lots of people were going to perish. And we said, good idea, go put some seeds away, save some stuff. In this case, hey, put toilet paper away. No, but but like if you know how to plant a garden, plant a garden. If you know somebody who has some land, make friends with them because you live in an apartment in town. Maybe someday you might need to help them. And someone phoned in, there was a live show, and a lady phoned in from back east in the US, and she said, well, if I had a bunch of seeds and I had them in my house, and somebody came to the door and said, give me your seeds, what do I do if he wants my seeds? And I said, the first thing you're going to have to do is realize they're not yours. It's the my part of it. And once you take that deep breath and say, you know what, these are ours. I bet you, big strong guy at my door who wants my seeds, you and I together could plant and produce more working together. Plus, I can go to your house, we'll plant the seeds, and you could probably fix my roof.
Back to the barter. Yeah,
so it's not the lock on my door, the fence, the gate, the guns, get away, get off my lawn. It's you need this for your family. I need it for my family. We've just made a community together. You and I are both, you can do things, I can do things. So let's get together. And she's like, oh, that's a much better idea than defending your bag of flour, or
Right.
or I hoarded all the toilet paper and I'm going to sit here with my AR-15 at my front door and laugh at everybody walking by. No, you're the first ones. You're going to go. A tree is going to fall on your ass, or you're going to have a stroke, or something's going to happen because you're not one of the ones that are going to be around.
You're keeping the vibration low, on the planet.
You're gone. Whether you're going to be, well, like one person says, the reptilians are going to come down and take them all for food. Well, that could be awkward. But whatever your belief system is, at least they're leaving, right? So it's getting our heads around understanding that it's not all about the individual and us. And then we'll be a lot happier because you, like you do in your dreams, like you do in life right now, Claudia, is you're attracting people of higher vibration to you. You've pushed those other ones. They don't stay in your life very long at all anymore.
You're right.
When you were younger, you had the narcissist coming at you. You had the person that you thought, oh, yeah, the other empath thing, love at first sight, for us is foreboding. It's horribly bad because literally we're looking at somebody and saying, oh, I can fix you. And they're looking at us going, oh, look, Claudia can fix me. No, you can't. You stop it. Go away. Maybe
they can fix me,
Yeah. It's amazing. It's amazing it's coming. It's sad, but it's for the greater good.
Exactly.
And we're going to have to tear that Band-Aid off. And it's unfortunately our Band-Aid is on a really hairy part of our body, and it's
ouch. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's it. Again, we've been talking to Claudia Edge, claudiaedge.com. Please, if you've got any questions for Claudia, send her an email at claudia@2, like the number 2 Edge Inc. INC. Oh, yeah, that's it. That's how you spell ink. Claudia2edgeinc.com. Go check out her website, Gifts from the Edge, and look at her books. The Gifts from the Edge series, Gifts from the Edge, Lessons from the Other Side, and Gifts from the Edge, Stories of the Other Side. Both can be found on Amazon. And let's see, Kindle. Oh, look at you with the Kindles. Gifts from the Edge. Facebook is Claudia Edge, and Edge is spelled EDGE. So to be good, because some people I know, like me, we have problems spelling because that whole dyslexia thing. Again, this has been really cool. I'm going to have to get you back because we got tons to talk about. I want to not only lessons from the other side, but I want to hear more stories from the other side.
Awesome.
Of the other side. So that's really cool. So again, thanks, Claudia, for coming by. I really appreciate this.
Thanks, James. I had a great time. It was just like having a good conversation with a good friend, and so thanks for the opportunity. And I'm so glad we met. Love to come back.
Watching you while you sleep all alone.
All right, that's it. Let's roll. And hey. Let's be careful out there.
Far over the snow, what are those voices? They sing as they go. What are those voices? The cause for the mountain. Because somebody better hide on through the hill, like a pack of angry wolves on the trail. Dead or alive, we are out to get you, dead or alive. If you're the one, better run away. Son, you are done, throw your gun away. Here come the Mounties to get the men that are on through the hill, like a pack of angry wolves on the trail. Dead or alive, we are out to get you, dead or alive. If you're the one, better run away. Son, you are done, throw your gun away. Here come the Mounties to get the man they're after. No!